The Mark of the Beast is about human seed, DNA, and defiling God's temple, Part 4. Donald Trump, the Vatican, Rome, the Pope, and the Roman Catholic Church. How are they all connected in the end times? Dates in chronological order concerning past events that have involved Donald Trump and the Vatican. 1964 to 1966, Trump attended the Jesuit Society-owned Fordham University in the Bronx, New York City's most northern borough. There he studied economics before transferring to complete his undergraduate degree at the Wharton School at the University of Pennsylvania. October 20th, 2016, Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton, the Republican and Democratic presidential nominees, roasted each other at a Catholic charity dinner. May 24, 2017, Trump and Pope Francis met for around 30 minutes in the Pope's private library at the Vatican and ended their high-profile meeting with a handshake. Be mindful of all the dates on this slide. December 8, 2020, Operation Warp Speed Summit, the approval of Beer-19 Moderna and Pfizer BioNTech vaccines for major distribution across America. Vaccinations of American citizens and Beer-19 vaccine distribution to countries abroad. December 14, 2020, frontline medical workers are the first to receive Pfizer's Beer-19 vaccination. By the end of the week, 2.9 million doses will arrive at 636 locations in all 50 states. December 25th, 2020, Pope Francis in his Christmas message on Friday said, political and business leaders must not allow market forces to take priority over making Beer-19 vaccines available to all, condemning nationalism and the virus of radical individualism.
Biographer Michael D'Antonio says young Donald's thirst for attention often landed him in trouble at school.
He said to me that he was a wise guy. He's the fellow who threw an eraser and gave a teacher a black eye and would throw cake around a birthday party. So I can imagine him as being a little terror.
It proved even too much for Fred Trump to handle. So at age 13, Donald's parents shipped him upstate to the New York Military Academy.
Many kids, of course, are desperately homesick, can't wait to go home. He apparently loved military school. He liked the kind of out front, I think, competitiveness of it. There were so many different ways that you could excel and get medals and ribbons, cleanest rooms, shiniest shoes, all that kind of stuff.
Donald Trump thrived, rising in rank, and he was socially popular with men and women. He also gravitated towards sports, or rather, winning in sports, in soccer, wrestling, football, and baseball.
He excelled at baseball to the point where I think his coaches felt that he could become a professional baseball player. I think military school at least wrung some of his adolescent excesses out of him for a brief period of time. But the thing to remember about Donald Trump is that his wealth sort of created a bubble around him, and he's been able to pursue his appetites and really do whatever he wanted to do for most of his life with very few restraints.
After graduation, he lived at home while commuting to Fordham University in the Bronx.
His sister told me that the reason he went to Fordham, I asked, and she said it's where he got in.
2 years later, he transferred to the University of Pennsylvania's Wharton School of Finance and Commerce.
You won't find people at Penn who say, well, I was Donald's really good friend, I was in a fraternity with him, or we socialized. He didn't do any of those things. He studied, and then come Friday, as soon as he could, he'd jump in his car and go back to Queens where he worked with his dad. So from the very start with Donald, it was about getting control of the family business, building it, growing it, and becoming the rich and famous and powerful person that he eventually became.
Nope. Right out of the gate, no handshake here. Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton in the same room once again. This time, a New York charity dinner. The only thing separating them, a man of God.
Hillary accidentally bumped into me, and she very civilly said, "Pardon me."
An election year tradition, time for the candidates to poke fun at themselves and each other. No one was off limits.
Michelle Obama gives a speech, and everyone loves it. It's fantastic. They think she's absolutely great. My wife, Melania, gives the exact same speech. And people get on her case. And I don't get it.
But some of Trump's jokes didn't go over so well.
Hillary is so corrupt. She got kicked off the Watergate Commission. How corrupt do you have to be?
The typically charitable crowd turning on Trump, booing and jeering after he seemingly broke the long-standing tradition of lobbing jokes more lighthearted than these jabs.
We've learned so much from WikiLeaks. For example, Hillary believes that it's vital to deceive the people by having one public policy and a totally different policy in private. That's okay. I don't know who they're angry at, Hillary. You're right. For example, here she is tonight in public pretending not to hate Catholics.
Hi, George. Good morning from Rome. As you know, these are two leaders who don't see eye to eye on a number of issues. They had that very public feud during the campaign over immigration. But today, that first face-to-face right here at the Vatican, and they both seem to genuinely get along.
Welcome to the Vatican.
President Trump at the Vatican this morning, a ceremonial arrival complete with the red carpet and Swiss guards. His first meeting with Pope Francis, First Lady Melania wearing a veil here too. A slow procession to meet the Holy Father, President Trump seeming to take it all in.
Because he will came out in honor of you.
The president's entourage, including daughter Ivanka and son-in-law Jared, waiting outside as the president entered the Pope's private library. A handshake between the two world leaders before they got down to business. The meeting lasting about 30 minutes. At times, the president beaming alongside a very serious Pope. This face-to-face comes after their very public feud last year. The Pope called building a border wall unchristian. Then candidate Trump took him on.
For a religious leader to question a person's faith is disgraceful.
But today, the two sides hoping to find common ground, even on areas of disagreement, like the environment. The Pope gifting the president with a book of his writings on the subject, also a medal, a symbol of peace. The entire White House delegation invited in to meet him. The First Lady asking the Pope to bless a rosary. Ivanka Trump said she was humbled. And the two men who so publicly clashed, today ending their meeting in a handshake. Yeah, so there were no cameras inside for the meeting between the president and the Pope, but we are hearing a little bit about what they discussed. They talked about the situation in the Middle East. They talked about the protection of Christian communities around the world. A number of international affairs issue talked about here today.
Here to discuss a monumental national achievement. From the instant the coronavirus invaded our shores, we raced into action to develop a safe and effective vaccine at breakneck speed. We're just days away from authorization from the FDA, at which point we will immediately begin mass distribution. As a result of this unprecedented investment, we are exceedingly proud that both Pfizer and Moderna have announced that their vaccines are approximately 95% effective. Despite the grim projections from the media 8 months ago, we did something that nobody thought was possible. They said it will never happen. You could never do it. It was a pipe dream. In just a few minutes, I'll sign an executive order to ensure that American citizens have first priority to receive American vaccines. We will soon end the pandemic, and we will save millions and millions of lives.
Every corner of the country, Americans have been rolling up their sleeves today. Frontline medical workers in ERs, ICUs, and COVID units who've seen firsthand the pandemic's horrors. Among the first, Sandra Lindsay, a critical care nurse in New York.
I feel hopeful today, relieved. I feel like healing is coming.
Because minor side effects can cause some people to miss a day or two of work, hospitals are staggering who gets it when.
All done. Not too bad.
At Methodist Health in Dallas, Teresa Mata, who cleans rooms at the hospital, was at the front of the line.
They tell me I am the first person to take the vaccine, so woohoo!
Across the country hope that this is a game changer.
Once we get enough people to get this vaccinated, we can kiss COVID goodbye.
After overnight rush deliveries, the FedEx and UPS shipments began arriving early this morning. FedEx's first delivery was at 5:53 a.m. to a hospital in Boston. UPS's first was at 7:23 a.m. in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. Nationwide, 145 sites received shipments today. By the end of the week, 2.9 million doses will arrive at 636 locations in all 50 states. The first priority, medical workers and nursing home residents and staff. Next up, teachers, firefighters, police officers, and food handlers. Then those 65 and older or with pre-existing conditions.
Celebriamo la luce del Cristo che viene al mondo, alle violenze e alle ingiustizie. Cari fratelli e sorelle, oggi in questo tempo di oscurità e incertezze per la pandemia appaiono diverse luci di speranza, come le scoperte dei vaccini. Ma perché queste luci possano illuminare e portare speranza al mondo intero, devono stare a disposizione di tutti. Non possiamo lasciare che i nazionalismi chiusi ci impediscano di vivere come la vera famiglia umana che siamo. Non possiamo neanche lasciare che il virus dell'individualismo radicale vinca a noi e ci renda indifferenti alla sofferenza di altri fratelli e sorelle. Non posso mettermi me stesso prima che gli altri, mettendo alle leggi del mercato e dei brevetti di invenzione sopra le leggi dell'amore e della salute dell'umanità. Prego a tutti i responsabili degli Stati, imprese, organismi internazionali, di promuovere la cooperazione e non la concorrenza e di cercare una soluzione per tutti, vaccini per tutti, specialmente per i più vulnerabili e bisognosi di tutte le regioni del pianeta. Al primo posto, i più vulnerabili e bisognosi.
The International Society of Jesus, the Jesuit Seal. Donald Trump attended a Jesuit-owned private university called Fordham. Universitas Fordhamensis Sapientia et Doctrina. IHS stands for Aesum Hibernis Socium in Latin. We have Jesus as our companion. Notice the sun iconography. Notice the sun's rays radiating around the logo of the Jesuit order. Donald Trump is the father of Operation Warp Speed, and he considers himself to be the Greco-Roman mythological gods Apollo and Helios. Apollo is the Greek mythological god of many things, the god of music, poetry, art, prophecy, plague, archery, the sun, light, and knowledge. Apollo is also considered the god of healing by mediating through his son Asclepius. Apollo is also considered the pagan defender of herds and flocks. If you want more context, please watch a video I made in late January called Trump Considers Himself to be Which Greek and Roman God of Light? Revelation 13 verses 1 to 6, the beast out of the earth, the false prophet, the beast out of the sea, the Antichrist. So the words highlighted in blue are about the Antichrist, and the words highlighted in red are about the false prophet. And I stood upon the sand of the sea and saw a beast rise up out of the sea. Out of the sea refers to the sea of politics, or the political sea, having 7 heads and 10 horns, and upon his 10 horns and upon his heads the name of blasphemy. And the beast which I saw was like unto a leopard, and his feet were as the feet of a bear, and his mouth as the mouth of a lion. And the dragon gave him his power and his seat and great authority. The dragon here means Satan. Satan gives the Antichrist power, his throne, and his authority. And I saw one of his heads as if it were wounded to death, and his deadly wound was healed. And all the world wondered after the beast, and they worshipped the dragon which gave power unto the beast. So Satan giving power to the Antichrist. And they worshipped the beast, saying, Who is like unto the beast? Who is able to make war with him? And there was given unto him a mouth speaking great things and blasphemies, and power was given unto him to continue 42 months. So 3.5 years. And he opened his mouth in blasphemy against God, to blaspheme his name and his tabernacle, and them that dwell in heaven. Revelation 13 verse 2, And the beast which I saw was like unto a leopard, and his feet were as the feet of a bear, and his mouth as the mouth of a lion. And the dragon gave him his power and his seat and great authority. So look at Trump's posture. He has poor posture. He has a gigantic skull. So what does John mean by the head of a lion, or the mouth of a lion? So Donald Trump talks very loudly. He speaks loudly. And he also likes to patronize everybody around him, including people in his own family. He patronizes Hillary all the time. He patronizes everybody. He's also more or less a carnivore. He loves eating fast food like McDonald's and KFC and steaks. He's not a big fan of vegetables. Look at Donald Trump's back. So clearly Trump has forward head posture and thoracic kyphosis, so an overcurvature of his upper spine, and also his lower spine, lumbar lordosis. Notice when a leopard hunts in the wild, it will contort its body in such a way as to lower its head close to the ground before it hunts gazelle or whatever it happens to want to kill. So that's what Apostle John means when he states, unto a leopard, I saw like unto a leopard. And Donald Trump has big feet, like the feet of a bear, which is why he leans forward. Trump started a series of courses, for-profit courses, I believe in 2010. He came out with his own university, Trump University, and Trump University essentially was a program with, I believe, online courses about real estate and how to become a successful realtor, which ended up being a complete fraud, and many people filed lawsuits against Trump and Trump University, so he had to shut that down. But again, notice the logo, the head of a lion, the body of a leopard, and the feet of a bear. It matches the exact description of Revelation 13 verse 2, the physical description of the Antichrist. Also, just going back to this slide about Apollo and Helios, notice that Trump spray tans his face orange, and he also dyes his hair blonde. He literally believes he's the god Apollo, and the other god Helios, the other sun god Helios, and the Egyptian god Amun-Ra, the other sun god, and the Roman sun god Sol Invictus. Revelation 13 verse 3, And I saw one of his heads were wounded to death, and his deadly wound was healed, and all the world wandered after the beast, and they worshipped the dragon which gave power to the beast. So Satan giving power to the Antichrist. And his deadly wound was healed. What does that mean? So there are 3 different ways of interpreting the hermeneutics here I'll discuss the first way. The hermeneutics is both literal and figurative. Someone might try to assassinate Donald Trump, and somehow he will sustain a head wound, recover and survive. He might also return to politics by running for president in the 2024 federal elections, or Donald Trump might try to stage a military coup with the aid of ex-military contractors and armed civilians who are staunch Trump supporters. An attempt to overthrow Joe Biden and the Democratic Party. Rule America like an emperor, do away with American democracy and the American Constitution. The Jewish Sanhedrin Temple Institute, located in Israel, might crown Trump the Messiah, King of Israel, and have him and his family relocate to Israel. Indeed, Trump isn't Jewish. He claims to be Presbyterian. His daughter, Ivanka, converted to Judaism and married her Jewish husband, Jared Kushner, who is Trump's son-in-law. They have children together. Donald has Jewish grandchildren. Trump could still be the fake Jewish Messiah as long as he converts to Judaism and learns the Jewish customs and laws. Remember the Jews who the Persian King Cyrus released from bondage and allowed to return to Israel after having been slaves in Babylon for 70 years under the rule of Babylonian kings such as Nebuchadnezzar and Belshazzar, later defeated by the Medo-Persian Empire. These Jews considered Cyrus to be like a Messiah figure. Messiah means anointed one, to have favor. Also, there is speculation that Trump is somehow connected to the lineage of David, the bloodline of King David. So we'll see how that manifests over time. Okay, the second interpretation. The hermeneutics is literal, meaning someone might try to assassinate Donald Trump and somehow he will sustain a head wound, recover, and survive. Revelation 13 verse 4, they worship the dragon which gave power to the beast. They worship the beast, saying, who is like unto the beast? Who is able to make war with him? When Donald was the 45th president of America, he spent a lot of taxpayer funds towards the armed forces budget. So the budgets of the military, the Air Force, and the Navy. He also created the 4th Division of the Armed Forces called the United States Space Force, Department of the Air Force. America also has 800 military bases positioned all over the world, and no other country spends more on its military budget, its annual military budget, than America. For the past two decades, the past 20 years, America has been number one in regards to its annual military expenditure. Trump also had somebody drop the mother of all bombs in Afghanistan, somewhere in Afghanistan, and he replaced all the outdated military weaponry. So no president before Trump has spent as much money on the military. And should Trump return in the Oval Office sometime in 2024, providing he wins the elections, the federal elections, he'll be president again in 2025. And again, who will be able to make war with the beast? He will be in control of the mightiest military in the world, the mightiest military that has ever existed. Who can make war with the beast? Revelation 13 verse 3 and Revelation 13 verse 4. And I saw one of his heads that were wounded to death, and his deadly wound was healed. And all the world wondered after the beast. And they worshipped the dragon which gave power to the beast. So let's look at the third interpretation. And his deadly wound was healed. The hermeneutics is figurative. Donald Trump will return to politics perhaps in a position of lesser power than the American president, or as the American president, or as the fake Jewish Messiah. Again, if Trump wins the 2024 federal election, he'll be considered both the 45th American president and the 47th American president. Revelation 13, verse 5, and there was given unto him a mouth speaking great things and blasphemies, and power was given unto him to continue 40 and 2 months. So 40 and 2 months equals 3.5 years. And some people speculate Donald Trump might return in a lesser position of power than the American president. Perhaps he might end up being the chair of the House of Congress, the Speaker of the House of Congress. The Sanhedrin Temple Institute came out with these half-silver shekel coins with Trump's face engraved next to the Persian King Cyrus's face on the coins. They did this because Trump relocated the American embassy in Israel from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem, and he declared Jerusalem the eternal capital of the Jews. And so Benjamin Netanyahu dedicated a town in the Golan Heights after Trump. He named the town Trump Heights. Now look at the coin. You notice these rays of light all throughout the coin, all throughout it. Look at the seven candlestick menorah. Look at the great American seal. And look at the faces of Trump and King Cyrus. So in a way, the Jews are already declaring Trump as their Messiah. If Jews biblically considered Cyrus to be like the Messiah, an anointed one, then the Jews today living in Israel, many of them have been speculating that Trump might be their Messiah. Revelation 13, verse 5, there was given unto him a mouth speaking great things and blasphemies, and power was given unto him to continue 40 and 2 months, so a period of 3.5 years. Look at the date, June 25th, 2021. In a North Carolina speech, former President Trump hinted at running again by saying he's looking very much to the 2024 elections.
And we just can't let it happen. We're going to win North Carolina's all-important U.S. Senate race. And we're going to lay the groundwork for making sure that Republicans once again carry the great state of North Carolina in a year that I look very much forward to, 2024. We're going to do a year that I look very much forward to, 2024. We're going to do numbers like you've never seen before. So many things are happening right now, but we're going to do things like you've never, ever seen before. I stand before you today confident that the people of North Carolina will decisively reject Joe Biden and the radical Democrats, the war on the American worker, the American family, and the American nation.
I want to return to this slide just for a few seconds. Remember, Donald Trump just isn't the father of Operation Warp Speed. He's also the father of the Abraham Accords. So he's already gotten many Arab states or Arab nations to sign a peace pact that he calls the Abraham Accords, whom his son-in-law, Jared Kushner, helped them negotiate, along with another advisor named Jason Greenblatt. So Trump has managed to get the signatures of countries like Arab states like Morocco, Sudan, Qatar, and the United Arab Emirates. America's signature is also on there, and so is Israel's signature. So he's the father of the Abraham Accords and Operation Warp Speed. That covenant with many nations that John states in the book of Revelation, that Daniel, the prophet Daniel states in the book of Daniel, the covenant with many nations. Let's study the etymology of the word corona. Etymology is another word for studying the history and the meaning of words. So many English words have Latin roots or Greek roots or French roots, depending on the words. Vir-19 virus virions are spherical or variable in shape and composed of an outer layer of lipid covered with a crown of club-shaped peplomeres or spikes. Within each spike is a helical, single-stranded RNA containing structural protein. Although the term corona was first used in English in the 1500s, it was borrowed directly from the Latin word for crown. Corona is derived from the ancient Greek korone, meaning garland or wreath, coming from a Proto-Indo-European root scare or cur, meaning to turn or to bend. Relief showing Helios, sun god in the Greco-Roman mythology. So how does Helios differ from the Greek mythological god Apollo? They're very much the same. However, Helios is more affiliated with the actual sun, coronal mass injections and this core of the sun and the rays of the sun. Apollo is more affiliated with, he's more known as a god of light, more than he is the god of the sun. But they're more or less the same type of deities in Greco-Roman mythology. And Trump considers himself to be both Helios and Apollo. He also considers himself to be Amun-Ra and Sol Invictus, all solar deities. In ancient Rome, the linkage between the power of rulers and the power of the sun was also frequently depicted on coinage. For example, a sovereign wearing a radiate crown on the front, a verse of the coin, and a personification of the sun also wearing a radiate crown and sometimes driving a quadriga on the back reverse was common. So here in this illustration you can see a quadriga. Notice how there are 4 horses in a row. Compare that to a dog sled where you have 2 dogs ahead of 2 other dogs ahead of 2 other dogs. So this Greek chariot known as a quadriga, all the horses are in one row. So 4 horses in one row, and the quadriga that the Greek deity Helios is riding. Our modern day corona conceptualization of club-shaped spikes in the coronavirus surface comes from traditional representations of crowns as radiant headbands, worn as symbols of sovereign power to liken that power to that of the sun. Solar deities have been integral in the development of cultures all across the world. So again, depicted on coinage. Let's go back here. Let's look at this silver half shekel coin. Look at all these light rays that radiate all throughout this silver half shekel coin dedicated to Donald Trump, the 45th American president. Donald Trump believes he is the Greek gods Helios and Apollo. So this is an old Time magazine front cover with Donald Trump on it, and he's looking into a mirror. He's staring at a reflection of himself wearing a crown. Remember, crown in Latin means corona. Donald Trump used to have a reality hit TV show called The Apprentice, a business-related reality show. Contestants would compete with one another in business-related obstacles, and at the end of every episode, the contestants would gather together in a meeting room, in a boardroom, the Apprentice boardroom. Trump would sit in this red chair, and he would decide who gets to go home that day based on poor performance. Look at this mirror right here. Every time Trump sits on this red chair, he is effectively staring at himself in the mirror. Notice its circular design. Notice what appear to be sun rays or rays of light all throughout, going around the mirror. Again, Trump believes he is the sun god, or many sun gods. Revelation 4 verses 10 to 11. The 24 elders fall down before him that sat on the throne, and worship him that liveth forever and ever, and cast their crowns before the throne, saying, Thou art worthy, O Lord, to receive glory and honor and power, for thou hast created all things, and for thy pleasure they are and were created. So these verses do not refer to the Antichrist. They refer to Jesus Christ, our Lord and Savior. So the elders cast their crowns before the throne of Jesus, the Lamb of God. Okay? Well, let's study the antithesis of Revelation 4 verses 10 to 11, the satanic version of that. Worshippers of the Antichrist, the marked ones, 666, cast their crowns before the throne of the Antichrist when they received the Beer-19 vaccines. So regardless of whether someone is partially Beer-19 vaccinated or fully Beer-19 vaccinated, by default, they all cast their crowns. Again, corona, the Latin word, means crown. They cast their crowns before the throne of the Antichrist, before the image of the beast, Operation Warp Speed. They are crowning him their Messiah. Revelation 13 verses 7 to 10, the beast out of the earth is the false prophet, and the beast out of the sea is the Antichrist. So don't mistake the two, they are different. And it was given unto him to make war with the saints, that is the Antichrist, and to overcome them. And power was given him over all kindreds and tongues and nations. And all that dwell upon the earth shall worship him whose names are not written in the book of life of the Lamb slain from the foundation of the world. If any man have an ear, let him hear. He that leadeth into captivity shall go into captivity. He that killeth with a sword must be killed with a sword. Here is the patience and the faith of the saints. So let's go back to this slide for a few seconds. Trump is the father of Operation Warp Speed. He's made life so much more difficult for us, the saints, the remnant of Jesus Christ. Why is that? Well, because he was the one responsible for getting European pharmaceutical companies, so companies like Pfizer and BioNTech and pharmaceutical companies in Europe, to manufacture Beer-19 vaccines. America still remains the central distribution hub of all the Beer-19 vaccines. Under the Biden administration, millions and millions and millions of vaccines have been exported to poorer countries, and not just poorer countries, but other countries as well. So Biden has been doing the Antichrist Donald Trump's dirty work. Okay, so loose legislations now might become a lot more draconian, meaning what's voluntary now will become mandatory in the future, shortly, very soon. As more people get even partially Beer-19 vaccinated, governments worldwide will change policies to make it more difficult for Christians. So you'll be required to be fully vaccinated eventually and carry some sort of digital ID or physical ID, some form of either the two. Okay, so great persecution is coming. So remain vigilant, sober-minded, and in constant prayer and communication with the Most High God. Revelation 13 verses 11 to 15, and I beheld another beast coming up out of the earth. So this is the false prophet. And he had two horns like a lamb, so he appears innocent. And he spake as a dragon, but his words, whenever he speaks, they're destructive. They have the power to kill. And he exerciseth all the power of the first beast before him. So the false prophet exercises power over the Antichrist, and causeth the earth and them which dwell therein to worship the first beast. So he'll cause everybody to worship Donald Trump, whose deadly wound was healed. Remember, we studied the three possible hermeneutics: figurative, literal, or both. And he doth great wonders, so that he maketh fire come down from heaven on the earth in the sight of men. This refers to the false prophet, verse 13. And deceiveth them that dwell on the earth by the means of those miracles which he had power to do in the sight of the beast. So the false prophet does miracles in front of the Antichrist, saying to them that dwell on the earth that they should make an image to the beast, the Beer 19 image, which had the wound by a sword and did live. So again, either a political wound or a literal wound, or maybe even both. Both the political wound and a literal flesh wound. And he had power to give life unto the image of the beast, that the image of the beast should both speak and cause that as many as would not worship the image of the beast should be killed. So look at, again, the Operation Warp Speed logo, the Beer 19 sphere with spikes sticking out of it, corona to crown. Look at the World Health Organization, the leader of the World Health Organization, Tedros. He's giving power to that image whenever he speaks. So is Pope Francis when he promotes Beer 19 vaccines, when he calls them a moral obligation for everyone. They're giving life to that image, the corona, the shape, the structure of the actual virus itself. Revelation 13 verses 16-18, the false prophet enforces the mark of the beast, not the Antichrist. And he causeth all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and bond, to receive a mark in the right hand or in their foreheads, that no man might buy or sell save he that had the mark or the name of the beast or the number of his name. Here is wisdom. Let him that hath understanding count the number of the beast. For it is the number of a man, and his number is 666, or 666. In the next video, which should be the final video of in my video series, I will discuss in great detail the image of the beast and how it differs from the mark of the beast, and how that differs from the number of the beast's name, and how that differs from the number of the beast. So you have the image of the beast, the mark of the beast, the number of his name, and the beast's number. Let's continue. Points to consider. The false prophet enforces the mark of the beast, not the Antichrist. The false prophet enforces the mark of the beast during the last 3.5 years of the Great Tribulation. So somehow the Antichrist will come back on the political stage. And during these last 3.5 years, John calls this period of time the Great Tribulation, meaning all hell will break loose when the Antichrist returns. All hell will literally break loose on earth. You'll have World War III most likely, and catastrophic shifts, earthquakes, catastrophic tsunamis, and you'll have famines and droughts and slave labor and cannibalism and marauding everywhere and raping, and it'll be extremely excruciating time. The false prophet causes all people to receive the mark of the beast on the Antichrist's behalf. So Pope Francis has said there's a moral obligation to get vaccinated. I posted the hyperlink to the article below, highlighted in blue and underlined. Should you wish to open it, read it for yourselves. I'm going to read an excerpt from the article. President Biden called the effort to provide vaccinations an example of America at its finest, and added that they're all meeting what Pope Francis calls The moral obligation, get vaccinated, something which he went on to say can save your life and the lives of others. In that interview, Pope Francis called vaccination an ethical option because it concerns your life, but also that of others. So again, giving life to the image of the beast. You have the papacy promoting that logo, Operation Warp Speed, Corona. You have Tedros, the head of the World Health Organization, promoting the same message. You know, the World Health Organization logo is the rod of Asclepius, a serpent entwined around a staff. Again, remember how in part 2, I believe, of my video series, I discussed how the serpent represents pharmakia, which means sorcery or witchcraft or poisoning. It's trying to bite your spiritual antenna, your third eye. It's trying to poison you with messenger ribonucleic acid. So the rod of Asclepius and the caduceus, the American Medical Association logo, the staff of Hermes, the staff with two serpents entwined around a staff and around it, and wings on top of the staff with a sphere, the sphere representing your skull, and within your skull, in your skull, your brain, and more specifically your third eye or your pineal gland. Again, poisoning, sorcery, witchcraft, trying to poison you with messenger ribonucleic acid, trying to defile you and your temple, your third eye, the temple of God. So the rod of Asclepius, that logo, and the staff of Hermes, the caduceus, these are giving life to the image of the beast, Corona. Also, the image of the beast could also entail MAGA, Make America Great Again. And look how many Christians, supposed Christians, voted Donald Trump into power when he became the 45th American president. Okay, look how many of them worship him like a golden calf. They chant, "We love you, we love you," at his pep rallies. They wear his satanic MAGA. Again, if you go look at the satanic hierarchy according to the Church of Satan, church formed by Anton LaVey, the highest echelon is considered MAGA, or Magus, meaning Make America Great Again. So these are all forms of beast worship, the images of the beast. Another image of the beast could very well be AI, artificial intelligence. Perhaps when Trump returns, we'll have some sort of a crypto digital dollar that's connected to artificial intelligence. But before that begins, people have to be marked. People have to take the mark of the beast beforehand, so that the later stages of the mark of the beast system can occur once most people have been marked. So who is the false prophet mentioned in the book of Revelation? I'm not suggesting Pope Francis, or Jorge Bergoglio is his English name, is the false prophet of Revelation. However, he very well could be. And should another pope come after him, he might be pro-Trump and promote what Francis has promoted to date, Beer 19 vaccinations, the mark of the beast. Now, Pope Francis has been fully Beer 19 inoculated. He's received both vaccines. Also, Pope Benedict XVI, his English name being Joseph Ratzinger, the Pope before Pope Francis, has been fully Beer 19 vaccinated and promotes the same message as Pope Francis. The Beer 19 situation will worsen depending on the many ways the world governments and the media decide to spin off the propaganda concerning the Beer 19 vaccines, the Beer 19 virus, the different Beer 19 strains, and statistics relating to these factors. Eventually, people who don't comply with the Beer 19 policies will go to prison and die. Many of the saints, but not all of the saints. The saints who refuse to comply with the mark of the beast worldwide government policies, which are only going to become more draconian. so less wiggle room. The worldly people will despise them and want them jailed and dead. The vaccinated groups will deem the unvaccinated groups as biological hazards, which is counterproductive. I mean, what's the logic? There's no logic behind that. Why are vaccinated people, why do they fear unvaccinated people? Isn't that faulty logic? What's the point of even having taken the Beer-19 vaccines if they don't work, if they don't protect them? I know people who have been fully Beer-19 vaccinated and they still have this Beer-19 virus. So, again, it's faulty logic. The false prophet will promote the same message regardless of whether he is Francis or someone after him. Some speculate that a cardinal from America might be the next pope, and he might be a staunch Trump supporter. However, it doesn't matter because though technically the mark of the beast is enforced for the last 3.5 years, the period called the Great Tribulation, remember, popes are selected and there's some sort of succession. So if one pope preaches the same message about vaccines, then they'll all preach the same message about Beer-19 vaccines. Joseph Ratzinger, Benedict XVI, Jorge Bergoglio, Pope Francis, and possibly and the next pope, if there is one, they'll all be promoting the same message. So yes, this is the mark of the beast. Don't let anyone else dissuade you. It is the mark of the beast. Pope Francis has said there's a moral obligation to get vaccinated. Date January 10, 2021. So in a previous video that I played, we watched Pope Francis give a speech, a Christmas Mass speech last year, promoting the Beer-19 vaccines. He requested that all nations, leaders, companies, all work to, pharmaceutical companies and scientists, they all work together in coming up with a solution to end the Beer-19 pandemic. Okay, so 2 weeks after his speech, his Christmas speech, he mentioned there's now a moral obligation to get vaccinated. So he calls it now a moral obligation to get vaccinated.
Francis also says that it is a moral obligation to take the coronavirus vaccine. In a sit-down interview on Italian television yesterday, the Holy Father said those who do not receive the vaccine are playing with their own lives and the lives of others. Joining us now with more details is EWTN News Rome correspondent Colin Flynn. Colin, good to see you. So what more did Pope Francis say about receiving the vaccine?
Good evening, Tracy. Well, in a TV interview last night here in Italy, Pope Francis said it was everyone's ethical duty to take the COVID-19 vaccine and that he was in line to receive it as early as this coming week. In the interview, Pope Francis said it was an ethical choice because you're gambling with your own health, with your life, but also you're gambling with the lives of others. The Pope has also, of course, Tracy, on a number of occasions said that everything must be done to ensure the vaccine is available to all, not just those living in wealthy and first world countries. Now, in this interview, he spoke about a memory from his childhood in Argentina when they had the polio epidemic, and he recalled many children being left paralyzed from it, and he talked about how everyone was desperately awaiting a vaccine. So he went on to say that he would be getting the COVID-19 vaccine and that it must be done. Pope Francis, of course, is 84 years of age, and when he lived in Argentina, he had part of one of his lungs removed after suffering an illness, which puts him now in a very vulnerable category.